You've done it again. You're standing right in front of someone you've met at least 3 or 4 times, and their name is completely gone. Not even on the tip of your tongue, just wiped clean like it was never there. Picture this. Maybe it's a colleague from last month's meeting or a parent from your kid's school events. The conversation starts flowing, and suddenly you realize the mental file is empty. And the worst part isn't the forgetting. It's the next 10 or 15 seconds of pure panic where you're trying to fake it, angling your body, smiling awkwardly, hoping someone else says their name or their phone rings so you can escape without looking foolish. Your stomach tightens, your face warms up, and that old familiar embarrassment kicks in hard. We've all been there. But people who do this chronically aren't rude or careless, and they're definitely not as scatterbrained as they've been made to feel. There's something very specific happening in their brains. Once you understand it, the guilt hits different. So let's talk about what's really going on. When you meet someone new, your brain is doing a ridiculous amount of work at the same time. It's scanning their face for micro-expressions, listening to their tone, figuring out the social context, deciding if you like them or if they like you, and planning exactly what you should say next so you don't sound awkward. Your working memory, that short-term space in your prefrontal cortex, is basically juggling 6 different things at once. And right in the middle of all that noise, someone drops a single random sound. "Hi, I'm Kevin." Kevin doesn't connect to anything. It has no story, no feeling, no image attached to it. It's just sitting there, isolated, while your brain is already overloaded. So it drops the name. Not because you don't care about the person, because your brain is efficient and only holds on to what feels meaningful or emotionally tagged in the moment. The amygdala, which helps tag memories with emotion, simply doesn't get activated by a plain name during social stress, and the hippocampus struggles to lock it in. Psychologists have a perfect name for this. Back in 1987, researchers McWeeny and Ellis ran a study that's now called the Baker-Baker paradox. They showed people the exact same photo. To one group, they said the guy was a baker by profession. To the other group, they said his last name was Baker. Later on, the people who learned he was a baker remembered it way more easily. Same word, totally different results. Why? Because baker as a job brings up a whole web of real stuff. Fresh bread, warm kitchens, early mornings, the smell of dough, the satisfaction of feeding people. Your brain loves that rich network. It files it away easily and protects it. A name by itself, it's empty. It doesn't trigger any of those connections, so your brain treats it like background noise. Think about the last time you went to a funeral or a big emotional event. You probably remember how the room felt, who was crying, the stories people told, maybe even the way the flowers smelled or the heaviness in the air, but you don't remember half the printed words on the program. Your brain made a choice about what actually mattered without asking your permission. Names usually lose that battle because they lack emotional or contextual hooks. For a lot of people who constantly forget names, there's something even more personal happening while the other person is talking. These folks are stuck in their own heads in an anxious way. They're thinking, am I making enough eye contact? Is my voice shaking? Did I just say something stupid? Am I coming across as confident? The name comes in one ear and the internal monologue just steamrolls right over it before it has any chance to stick. This is backed up by research. In 1973, psychologist Malcolm Brenner discovered something called the next in line effect. People who were waiting to speak in a group barely remembered what the person right before them said because they had already mentally jumped ahead, rehearsing their own lines and worrying about their performance. If you deal with any social anxiety or you're just hyper aware of how you're coming across, you're basically living in that state all the time. You're half a step into the future, trying to seem normal, so the name never gets properly stored. Additional studies using brain scans show that during moments of self-focused anxiety, blood flow shifts away from memory-forming areas, making new information like names even harder to retain. Let me say this clearly, because I know a lot of you watching need to hear it. You don't have a memory problem, you have a preoccupation problem. Those are 2 very different things. The constant shame many people carry around this issue often traces back to childhood experiences where being good with people was praised, and forgetting details felt like failing some invisible social test. Recognizing this pattern is the first step towards real self-compassion. Now, let's talk about the person on the receiving end, because their feelings are real too. When someone forgets your name, especially after you've met a few times, it can sting. It can feel like a quiet message that says you didn't matter enough to remember, even when that's not true at all. This small rejection can make someone withdraw in professional settings or hesitate to deepen friendships. The truth is, the person who forgot your name probably thought about the conversation afterwards. They remembered the story you told about your family struggles. They remembered the way you laughed at that one joke. They remembered the spark in your eyes when you spoke about something you care about. They were present for all the real parts. Their brain just didn't file the label. Memory isn't a perfect video recording. It stores emotions, impressions, and patterns, and it's ruthless about what it keeps. Recent research on the fusiform face area of the brain shows we often encode faces and emotional expressions much stronger than attached verbal labels, which explains why you can picture someone clearly but still draw a blank on their name. Here's something that might surprise you. People who forget names easily often share another trait. They tend to be highly associative thinkers. Their brains are wired to remember stories, feelings, and context instead of neat little labels. Ask them what someone was wearing at a party 3 years ago, and they might actually know. Ask them the name of the person they just met, and nothing. This isn't a flaw, it's just a different mental architecture. It makes them great at emotional attunement, storytelling, and the kind of listening that makes people feel genuinely understood. Many associative thinkers thrive in careers like counseling, creative writing, teaching, or leadership roles, where reading the room and connecting dots matters more than rote recall. It's just not built for holding random sounds under social pressure. So if that's you, hear this. You're not absent or dismissive. You're not uncaring. Your brain simply prioritizes the real stuff, the texture of who someone is, over the arbitrary sound their parents gave them. The name was always the least interesting part. What you actually remember about people, that part has been there the whole time. This reframe alone has helped many people stop the negative self-talk that was quietly damaging their confidence in social situations. None of this means you shouldn't work on it. The good news is there are simple things that actually help because they force your brain to build the connections it skips automatically. Here's a quick 4-step system you can start using today that delivers real results with regular practice. First, repeat the name right away out loud. Kevin, it's great to meet you, Kevin. This creates an immediate bridge and gives the name a small emotional tag your brain can hold on to. Second, anchor it to something you already know. Turn it into Kevin with the red glasses or Sarah, who reminds me of my coworker who loves hiking. The more personal or visual the hook, the stronger the memory becomes. Third, use the name 2 or 3 times in the first couple of minutes of conversation. Every time you say it, you're reinforcing the pathway and telling your brain this detail matters. Fourth, after the conversation ends, take 10 seconds to quickly review. Kevin, glasses, works in marketing, told the funny story about his dog. This moves it from working memory into longer-term storage. These steps work because you're manually doing what your brain wasn't doing on its own. Start small in low-pressure situations and it gets easier fast. Over weeks, you'll notice less panic and more natural recall. At the end of the day, if you're someone who forgets names easily, you're not a bad person who doesn't register others. You're someone whose brain gets hijacked by its own internal weather and sometimes drops the least meaningful detail about a person. And if you're the one whose name gets forgotten, remember that the person who forgot you probably walked away carrying the real parts of you. The laugh, the story, the feeling. The name just didn't stick. That doesn't mean you didn't matter. You both walked away with more than you think. Understanding this psychology creates space for kindness towards yourself and towards others, which is where stronger relationships and quieter self-criticism begin to grow. If this video helped you feel seen and less guilty, drop "I forgot again" in the comments and share one situation where name forgetting happens to you the most. Your stories help shape future videos and build a real community here. Since we're just getting started on this channel, hit subscribe and turn on notifications right now so you don't miss the deep dives we have coming on anxiety, self-sabotage, emotional patterns, and practical psychology tools that actually improve your daily life. We're going to keep exposing the hidden patterns that run our minds and relationships, giving you real understanding and clear solutions every single time. Talk to you soon.